Welcome back to Docs Off Topic. So today I'm going to tackle some of the missing parts on the Project Lathe. So there's quite a few of the gears missing. So the tumbler reverse is missing the engagement between the tumblers themselves and the rest of the gear train. What's also missing is the banjo. So I'll be making up a pattern in the near future for that and casting it. So this video is going to be a hodgepodge of little bits of machining, some pattern making, some casting. And then hopefully we'll get that section all together. As you've seen, I've got the lathe up on its riser blocks and mounted properly to the bed, which means I can now start working on the powertrain as well. So we are finally starting to get some real traction happening here. I've finally managed to get the lead screw assembly apart, and it's in reasonable condition, not terrible. The half nuts are showing a little bit of chipping and wearing. They are cast iron. So I am trying to figure out how I would make a replacement set, but that's for a future video and a future bit of consideration. So I'll take you over to the lathe and we'll get started on the stud gear assembly part. What I have here is a piece of 50mm diameter free machining, which is lovely to work with, and I'm hoping we'll do all right as this part. What I'm doing at the moment is drilling it out to 11.5, so I can ream it to 12, and then I will press fit a brass bushing, or bronze bushing more accurately, which I will then ream to the 10.3 that is required for the journal that it runs on. Now, as you can see, this one is offset, so you can actually do the depthing for the gears to get them to match perfectly, seeing as they're not going to move much. So try not to muck with that too much. Let's get this out to 11.3, ream it, because that also gives us a true bore that we can then use for cutting the gears on, and then we'll press in the bronze and ream that out. Alright, so I made a change in plans. I've drilled it out to 13. We'll leave it at 13 because that gives me a millet and a bit for the bushing. I take this down to 19, which is the bore size on the gears, and I'm going to try and make them all 19, which brings me to these lovely ringers, which are the right pitch and everything, but their bore is 20.5. Yeah, nominally 20.5. 20.4 to 20.5. Now, admittedly, they do have to be machined down. So what I'm thinking is, bore them out, press fit a new core, turn them down to width, because they're roughly twice the width they need to be, and then drill and ream to 19 like all the others. Anyway, let's get this down to 19 then. 27mm diameter. There's going to be a couple of little complexities, one of which I've got a radius in there, but also I need a 4mm step between them. Alright. Alright, so we're down to 12.3, 8-ish, and I'm going to leave it at just a hair under 12, and I'm going to turn the rest of it on the mandrel, leaving just a little bit here so that so the whole gear isn't rubbing on the carrier for the tumbler reverse, unlike the tumbler gears. If that gets the cut, we can go faster. Down to 11.8, I'll be happy. So I'm having to remake this piece because it's not going to work. It's the wrong size. I used the wrong blank for that. No, it's my fault. But also it can't have this step which the South Bend uses. Because it's just not factored into the tumbler reverse mechanism. Literally there's like no clearance factored in at all. So 60mm blank, we are aiming for 58.8 or something like that. I'm just facing it off so that I can flip it around, face off and drill through for the 18mm hole, and then when my new reamer arrives, because I didn't actually have a 19mm reamer, much to my surprise, I will ream them to size and then fit them to the expanding mandrel and do the final turning on that. So let's make another one. 6.5mm. Oh, last day of the year, folks. Now I get the brains to stop a bit early and get this place a little bit of a clean up, just so I go into the new year a bit tidier. Oh well, we'll see. Alright, so that's down to 20. We've got 16 millimeters. Getting this down towards the threading depth, and then we'll cut a bit of relief. Taking 10 thou off of the pass. So that's the depth of cut, so 20 thou off the diameter. Okay, so we're coming up on 17. Okay, so we're set up between centers. And we are going to take absolutely baby-like cuts, which includes turning that down to size. First, let's make sure we're getting the right size on that one. This is going to be very touch and go. Don't like that. So we're pretty close to diameter already. Okay. So I'm going to run this very lightly, taking about 1 millimeter, and then I'll do a circuit, take another millimeter depth of cut, and so on, because this is a very thin arbor. There's going to be a hell of a lot of flex, there's going to be a lot of chatter, so I'm hoping this works out well. And we only really have to do the one on the very fine arbor. The others are all on a 19 millimeter arbor, which is quite a lot heavier than this. What really annoys me is I've got no better way to secure it to this arbor. So here's hoping this works out okay. final pass. This is like I'm taking 4th hour just to try and get some of that chatter out, because that is a hell of a thin mandrel, truth be told. So I'm trying to get some of that out. I'm not going to get all of it out. But we've only got like 3 or 4 left to go. Alright, let's find the height of that. Oh, just barely touching. What is that? That is 13.8. 8 or 13, yeah, 13.88. Sorry, I've got a bit of a head cold. So 143.88 millimeters. Let's write that down. Minus, what was that again? 87.08 or 09. 9 divided by 2. Okay, so the center of this should be 100.0.335 off the table. So now, and I know that the cutter that I'm using is 5.95 millimeters thick. One thing I hate about this mill, you can't actuate the Y feed lock without getting grease from the lead screw on your hands. What I really should do, now that I've had this one for a year, a bit of a list of things that I think are okay and a bunch of things that I think could be better. Might do that for the next one. Alright, so then I need to go up by half. Tool cutter, so that should be 103.31. Okay. Okay, that should be right about there. Will I be able to do that, or do I need to come in from the other side? Oh. Is that it be visually parallel to the spindle. It's just a quick rough and ready to show me whether or not I am actually on center, and that's very, very, very close to being, so I'm confident that I am on center. Alright, so this is a 46 tooth gear, so we've got this end set up. Now we're going to have to set up this end. So, don't count the first one. 3, 6, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. This was not going to work. I have to go the other way. So what I'll do is, instead of the usual pushing it up against this side, I hate this. What I'll do is I'll push this one that way. Alright, first two. Let's go. Lock the dividing head spindle. Not as noisy as I thought it was going to be. change gears. Old manual lathes, depend on them. The project lathe came with 6 original gears, 2 on the tumbler reverse, 1 on the spindle, and 3 wheels. Not enough for a set and no banjo, so I was planning on casting that for this video. Pattern's ready to roll, but it's rainy and there's storms forecast, so I'll put that off because I need to do that outside. So we're going to work on these instead. Now, off camera, already turned up 2 blanks. I've cut another 6 gears. So I've filled out the tumbler reverse and stud gear, and I've started building out the smaller wheels. And I've got 1 blank currently in the lathe, and that is going to form a blank that's about 119 millimeters, so that's going to be for the 64 tooth gear. I somehow omitted to get the blank for the 56, but I'll order that in from somewhere in the near future. I got these laser cut at a local place, and I'm going to get some other stuff cut by them, so I'll just tack it all together. Anyway, enough chit chat. Let's go over to the project lathe so you can see where I'm at and what we've got to do. And then we'll go to the south bend and we'll start cutting some blanks. I won't take you through all the gear cutting. I'll probably take you through 1, maybe a bit of 1. It's tedious, it's boring, and I don't think you want to see it. Alright, as you guys can see, project lathe now up on riser blocks. I've got the lead screw fitted temporarily. That was just to confirm that the riser blocks were tall enough to do what I needed to do, and to get a good, decent layout for the banjo. I am about to stick the pulley into some evapor rust to get some of the corrosion off. What else? Blanks that still need machining, I can do up to and including this one, I believe, in the south bend, although this one is going to be very, very tight. This one will have to wait until this one is under power, so I can machine the 127. I will also need to make a thread dial indicator for the carriage, and I'm toying with it being up this end because I've got a bit of thread, bit of space up here in the gap, and faceplate comes out actually out to about here, so there's this region that I never actually use even when I'm really close up, so it wouldn't be in the way, and it's close to the lead screw nut, the split nut lever. So let's go over to the south bend and we'll start machining the next gear. Now this blank is 125 in diameter, and I need it down to 121 or 120 and a half because the finished size is 119.92. So I just want a little bit to true it up on the mandrel once it's roughed in. So let's get some of this outside edge off because that is, I've noticed is hard as and is just making life a little bit difficult on the machining front. Now, yes, I know I could, and I have done in the past, plunged straight through with an 18. Don't like doing it. It is really hard on the headstock bearings. And this lathe is getting on for 100, and I don't feel like redoing some Babbitt bearings. The project lathe actually has bronze conical bearings. Now we do need it. Where are we? Now these all have to be a nominal 19 millimeters. So I'm drilling them out to 18. I bore them out to 18.7 and then I ream them. But I do that after I've done all of the rough machining. This is going to be fairly slow because I'm going to have to do it in the back gears. Don't think I'm going to end up with clearance. Because what I don't want to do is crash one of the chuck jaws into the locking screw for the compound. All right. Okay, so that's taking us down to 121. So it leaves us about 1 millimetre worth of material to take off, and that is literally as far as I'm willing to go. Now, what I could do is flip it now, take that off to the same level, because there'll be a little bit of a gap between where this finishes and the jaws, and then work it that way. And I think that's what I'm going to do, because I've struggled a little bit with the previous ones. All right. I don't think you guys can really see all that much from that angle, and if I put you where you can see, then I can't see. But we're geared up to start facing. We're going to take about 0.75 millimeters off. So currently this thing is 16 millimeters, should be. I wish I had crossfeed. Oh. So that's another blank done. That's ready for reaming. I'll show you one that I've machined up, but this one goes on the stack, and we'll figure out how to do the rest, because I don't think they're going to fit in this chuck. So 6 months is a long time. It's a lot of stuff to cover, and really a lot of it is very repetitive. So I figured I'd spare you the gory details of cutting an inordinate number of gears. So as you can see, the stack keeps growing and growing. These are the over thickness ones that I've machined down. As you can see by this progression, how I did that, initially turned them down to get the working width, bored them out, made the bushes, and press those in. So I had to heat the gears and freeze the bushes. Then once that was done, machined them down, brought it all down to the required width, and the stack got even taller. This is machining, I think it's the 108 tooth gear. And that will be the 116. Anyway, that's where I'm leaving off. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up. Feel free to share on social media. And if you haven't already, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. When you do, don't forget, ring the notification bell.